If you guys need coins for the new Fut birthday promo, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a nice 5% discount. So what's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for one of the most underrated formations in FIFA 23, this being the 4-3-1-2. Now this is very similar in style to the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, but the only real difference is that obviously the 4-3-1-2 has an extra centre mid instead of a CDM, so it actually makes it a lot better at pressing in my opinion. But just before we get into today's video guys, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, as that does really help me out with the YouTube search algorithm. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you are notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside guys, let's get right into today's video. Okay guys, so starting off with the custom tactics, for the defensive style I like to have this on balanced. This is because it is still the most controlled way of defending. Now I know I said this is better at pressing, and it is better at pressing, but it doesn't mean you want to be pressing all the time. Balanced is still the way to go, so you're able to press when you need to press, but you're also able to be a little bit more conservative when you need to be as well. Now moving on to the defensive width guys, I like to have this on 45. This is so we can primarily defend in a more narrow shape which blocks the attacks through the middle. This is super important, otherwise people will cut you apart, but at the same time we still have that natural width, so we're able to cover the wide areas as well. So we primarily defend in a narrow shape, but at the same time we're still able to cover the wings. Now moving on to the depth guys, I like to have this on 65 in this formation, and this is because like I said, it is a bit better at being an aggressive formation, so it does really help to have a higher depth when using it, I think. So by having this on 65, we're able to win the ball higher up the pitch and keep a lot of pressure on our opponents. The only reason I don't up this all the way is because I don't want to get through balled like repeatedly, so this is kind of like a nice balance where we can still be primarily aggressive but we're not over aggressive, if that makes sense. Now moving on to build up play guys, I suggest using this on balance. This is because it is the most controlled and consistent in FIFA 23. Something like fast build up is very good when the gameplay is quick, but it very rarely is, so I think balanced is the most consistent for all of the types of gameplays you might experience. Now moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it is the most meta option in the game. It makes your attackers bunch up against the defensive players, so you're able to do those really overpowered isolation plays. It also means your players make the correct movement, so you're able to get that extra pass option off, which does guarantee those extra goals. Now some people don't like direct passing, and that is fine. So if you are one of those people, the next thing I would suggest is forward runs. Now forward runs is a little bit different in the sense like it just pushes your team very far into your opponent's half, but the problem with this tactic I think is when you lose the ball you just become very exposed, especially on like the counter attacks and stuff like that. So you can use forward runs if you like, but I do prefer direct passing. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, I like to have this on 47. The reason we do this is because it is quite narrow, which obviously suits the formation we're using because it is a narrow formation, but we don't like this width being too narrow because it feels like your players are sat on top of each other and you don't really get the best movement. Likewise, you don't want this to be like too high in width, otherwise it just becomes a formation that it's not meant to be because it becomes a wider formation and you don't really want that. So 47 width seems to work very well. Now moving on to players in box guys, I like to have this on 6 so I can commit some players into the box to create chances, but at the same time we don't overcommit our entire team to the point where we get counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, we have these both on 1 because there is a corner kick routine that I use which requires both of these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the 2 striker positions I suggest going for a balance where you have one more creative player on one side and then a more clinical finisher on the other side. This is so we have like a creator finisher dynamic. It just makes your attacks a lot more varied and allows you to do a lot more in game. If you have like 2 out and out strikers, sometimes you can find it difficult to actually create any chances, and likewise if you use 2 creative players you'll find it difficult to finish off those chances. So I just like to go for that balance in the strike force. You guys might not like to do that, that, which is absolutely fine, but that is just what I suggest. Now moving on to the cam, guys, it's important that you use a nice technical player. This is somebody that is obviously going to be agile, good on the ball, good at passing, good at shooting, good at dribbling. You need them to be good in their all-around attack because they're your main playmaker in the team. You're not going to want to use somebody that is super clunky and unable to turn, as you'll find it difficult to create any sort of chances at all. Now moving on to the left centre mid, guys, I suggest using a more box-to-box style player. So I'm using the flashback Paul Pogba. This is somebody with very well-rounded stats, so he's going to be good in attack and defence, which is super important. And if you can get it, a high work rate is super beneficial as you get the maximum contribution in attack and defence. But for example, this Pogba is a high medium and he still works fine. So work rates are just something you should aim for, but don't worry too much if you can't get them perfectly. Now moving on to the middle centre mid, guys, I suggest using a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that is going to stay back. This needs to be somebody with like really good defensive stats, and you don't need to worry about their attacking ability because their purpose is to defend. So if you can get it in this position, a medium high work rate with really good defensive stats is what I prefer, but yeah, don't worry too much if you can't get that work rate perfectly. Now moving on to the right centre mid, guys, we actually use an attacker in this position. This is somebody like an Mbappe, an Alawaran, and Neymar, any of those types of players. This is because they're not actually going to play as a centre mid in this team. It'll make a lot more sense when we go to the player instructions. So just go for a very good attacking player in this position. As for the fullbacks, I like to go for a balance between the two, where I have Roberto Carlos on the left, who is my more attacking minded fullback. This is somebody that is better on the ball and is really going to contribute to the attack. And then on the right hand side we have Cafu, who's a bit more defensively sound but maybe lacks that attacking ability. That's just something I like to do where we have that balance, but you guys might not want to do that, and that is fine. As for the centre backs and the goalkeeper, these just need to be as meta as you can get them. There's really not much to say about them. Now for player instructions, guys, on both of the strikers I like to have them on stay central. This is so they always stay in the central areas where a striker should be. It's important we have them on this setting because if we have them on balance width, sometimes they'll drift off wide and out of position, and we really don't want that. We always need them to be in the correct positions for where the strikers should be. Now some people like to have them on getting behind, and that is fine, but I prefer to have them both on mixed attack. This is so we have better build-up play and they get more involved in the attacks. If you have them on getting behind, sometimes they feel very disconnected from the rest of the team, and it makes you play in a very one-dimensional way where you're always playing those predictable through balls, and it can backfire on you. Now moving on to the cam, guys, I have him on comeback on defense. This is so this team will defend in a 4-4-2 shape. Now the reason we do this is because the 4-4-2 is a much more superior defensive formation than the 4-3-1-2. This is simply because we have better width when we are defending and more coverage, so it allows us to be compact and able to cover all areas of the pitch when defending, which is super important. So putting the cam on comeback on defense means in my case he's going to come back to defend as a left midfielder. Now moving on to the box-to-box player, guys, on the left we have him on default settings and cover center. We have him on default settings because we don't want to restrict this player too much. He is a box-to-box style player, so we do want him to do a bit of everything, so we let him do that. The only important thing is that we have him on cover center, so he does defend as one of the middle center mids in the 4-4-2 formation. Moving on to the middle center mid, the more defensive minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking, stay on the edge of the box cross, and cover center. We have him on stay back while attacking because we don't want him going forward, he's defensive. We have him on stay on the edge of the box for cross because let's say he does accidentally get taken forward up the pitch, it means he won't overcommit into the penalty box, it means he'll just sit outside the penalty area. So that's just kind of like another fail safe, if that makes sense. And cover center again is so he defends as one of the centre mids in the 4-4-2. Now moving on to the right centre mid, where we actually use an attacking player, we have him on get forward, get into the box cross, and cover wing. Get forward means he's going to fly forward because he is an attacking player, that is what we want him to do. We have him on get into the box cross, so he always makes those transitional runs into the penalty area to get as involved as he can be, because if we have him on balanced crossing runs, sometimes he won't commit into the box, which really isn't what we want. So get forward, get into the box cross, and most importantly cover wing, so we will defend as a right mid in this 4-4-2 shape. So the way this will set up is the back four will be the same. Jairzinho will be my left mid, Pogba will be my left centre mid, Jorginho will be my right centre mid, and Chiesa will be my right mid. So can you see why I suggest not using an actual centre mid in this position? Now moving on to the fullbacks, guys, like I said, I have a balance between the two. So on my left back I have balanced attack and overlap. This is because the 4-3-1-2 is obviously a more narrow formation, so sometimes we need to add extra width to the attack. So with your more competent fullback, put them on balanced attack and overlap, so you always have that wide option when you're going forward. This makes you much more unpredictable and it allows you to get more more attacks off, because you can play narrow and wide at the same time. For my more defensive minded fullback, I have him on stay back while attacking and overlap. Now, the reason we do this is so we always at least have 3 defenders at the back, but if we do make him send a run forward with L1, for example, he'll make the overlapping runs to add extra width. As for the centre-backs and the goalkeeper, I just leave them on default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah, guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-3-1-2. If you guys have enjoyed or found this useful, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any videos like this one, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you're notified when a video is posted. And with all that aside, guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.